Welcome to HIMSS TV. I'm Laura Levitt. I'm the managing editor at Moby Health News. Today, we are so lucky to have with us Peter Hames, who is the co-founder of Big Health. Thanks so much for coming.
Real pleasure to be here, Laura. Thanks for having me.
I'd love to start if you could talk about, obviously digital health is having its moment, but digital mental health is really having that moment right now. What is the need and why is that?
Yeah, I think this is one of the things that was really clear from the health conference is the huge emphasis that has been put appropriately on mental health. And so I think, it's the pandemic. Like we've got to a point now as a result of the pandemic where mental health is really front and center of everyone's conversations. And it's, although it's, not really how anyone would have wanted it to happen, I think the silver lining of the pandemic is that this problem that's always been there is impossible to ignore now.
And it seems like digital is becoming a big medium for that. Why does digital make sense for something like mental health?
I think digital makes sense because access is such a huge issue. We know that mental health is incredibly prevalent. Recent Kaiser Foundation study showing that almost half of US adults have experienced a clinically significant mental health issue in the last 18 months, which is enormous numbers. And yet the traditional models of care, like human-delivered therapy, can never scale to address even, a minority of that, like a significant minority of that need. And so I think that, it really is the moment where these novel digital approaches are going to be necessary to actually tackle the big bulk of mental health need in the population.
Now, digital therapeutics have really come into the spotlight. Big Health is a digital therapeutic. Could you talk to me a little bit about what makes a digital therapeutic and, how is that different than other forms of digital care?
Absolutely. So yeah, Big Health, digital therapeutics company, our focus is on sleep and mental health. And what marks out a digital therapeutic for me is a pure software solution. So no humans, no coaches, just software that delivers, clinically meaningful health outcomes in a direct way. And so where this, fits, coming back to this access point, is I see digital therapeutics as being really the only way that we can bridge that gap between, the need in mental health and the complete lack of ability for the current models to supply that need. So, if you think about it, human-delivered therapy at best can tackle, the tip of the iceberg. There's a huge iceberg, the body of the iceberg under the waterline of mental health need can only be addressed with these transformative approaches, pure software approaches, rather than those hard to scale traditional models.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear your take on what's going on in terms of trends in mental health and digital mental health right now. Are you seeing more pediatric or, obviously you talked about sleep. What are you seeing in that field right now?
I mean, one of the big ones is a really rapid categorization between these different types of solutions, right? And so, on one hand, we have wellness solutions, these sort of consumer apps that I think we're very acquainted with, that have a lot of value, but are not clinical interventions. These are vitamins, digital vitamins, that can have some value in terms of general health and prevention, but will not yield, are not appropriate as a clinical solution for someone with a clinical problem. On the other end of the spectrum, you have these kind of human-delivered approaches, very clinically effective, but very hard to scale. And as I say, in the middle, is the majority of people who today only get the option of medications. The vast majority of mental health care happens in primary care, and 80% of those people only have the option of drugs. So I think that role for digital therapeutics, I think, is one of the big trends that I've seen emerge literally in the last 6 months as being, as we see that payers and employers are confronted with the limitations of the existing models.
I really love that idea of a digital vitamin, because I know that there's this whole, separation between health and wellness too. And what does that look like in digital health? So I like thinking of it that way versus a medication, a vitamin. So really interesting. What are you seeing in terms of, the business landscape? Obviously, there's more and more companies coming onto the market for digital health. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I think that what comes along with this huge spike in need, as you say, is a huge upswing in terms of just the sheer number of different solutions. I think, that's great. Innovation is what we need to like tackle these problems. But at the end of the day, obviously, this is healthcare, and so it's unlike, I think, other domains where technology has had a huge impact, in which a lot of the same principles apply. Different principles apply to other domains of innovation, and so for many of those, there's no shortcut. So I'm excited to see how a lot of these new entrants are able to collect the clinical evidence necessary to validate safety and effectiveness, to actually do the work to properly integrate with the healthcare system as a whole to have a real impact. And so I think that's still an open question as to how many of these new solutions are able to actually demonstrate that they are kind of fit for purpose in delivering true healthcare.
Actually, that's really interesting because I know Big Health has done a lot of clinical research. What do you think that digital mental health companies need to have in terms of evidence to get to the market? And what have you done?
Yeah, so I think that, again, this comes down to the division between what we might think of as wellness and true healthcare. It doesn't matter whether it's digital, human, medication, like whatever the modality. If you're focused on solving a healthcare problem, you need peer-reviewed, like gold standard clinical evidence of safety and effectiveness. Like that is, it doesn't matter what form that takes. And so we're very proud of the effort and years that we put into gathering the world's leading clinical evidence base. So we have over 60 peer-reviewed clinical publications, like 13 randomized control trials now, like published in peer-reviewed journals of our products. And so it gives us a lot of confidence that in the safety and effectiveness of what we're doing and the appropriateness. So I think that any digital mental health or just digital health intervention versus, say, a digital wellness intervention has to just, there's no two ways about it. You've got to do the work to demonstrate against the highest standards of clinical validation, the safety and effectiveness of what you're doing.
I'd love to talk a little bit about Big Health, what you're doing right now, but also what are you looking at for the future, maybe the next, 1 to 2 years?
I think we are just thrilled to be in the position that we are in terms of this pivotal moment in the evolution of the way that mental health care and digital medicine is being delivered. And so, we're very fortunate that we are really at the forefront of that growing industry. Our whole mission is to help millions back to good mental health. And the opportunity here is to build, a sort of an industry of a size and scale to have an impact at the same level as an industry such as pharma, and doing so in a way that really acts in the best interests of patients and individuals. And so, over the next several years, I'm just excited to continue the growth that we're seeing, and continue to strive to get further and further along that mission of helping millions back to good mental health.
Is there anything I haven't asked yet you'd like to add?
No, I think it's great to be talking. It's a very exciting moment in the formation of this very rapidly evolving industry, and I'm just excited to play a part in helping to shape standards and around this new industry for the benefit of those that we're trying to help.
Great. Well, thanks so much for coming on.